Welcome, everyone. We are lucky to have on the show Georges Gentry, who George Star Wars and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the Avengers versus Godzilla. And that's the reason why you're on is because I really enjoyed Avengers versus Godzilla, and Cassidy is a huge Star Wars fan, and she was like, "Yeah, he enjoys Mandalorian and Ahsoka."
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm a huge Godzilla fan, so I came at it from the other opposite way.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that whole series where he's just fighting everybody, and I can't believe how popular he is right now in comic books because
It is. If anybody's whoring themselves out, it's got to be Godzilla. He's got at least three titles.
He's at DC, he's at Marvel, and he is at IDW. How I don't even understand how that something like that happens.
And then Toho puts out their own book.
Right.
We don't get it here, but yeah.
So
are we gonna get Godzilla Star Wars?
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Breaking that here right now. Godzilla versus Star Wars. So what do you have going on right now?
Well, just what you said. The Godzilla versus the Avengers has came out a month ago, and it went into a second printing, I might add. So good. I was very proud of that. I did, funny enough, you should mention IDW. I did a variant cover for GalaxyCon. The IDW folks have all, just like the Star Wars or the Marvel stuff, they have these variant covers as well. And I did a variant for that. I am working for Mad Cave Studios at the moment.
Oh, we love Mad Cave. We interviewed we interviewed one of the marketing guys there.
Oh, cool.
We love Mad Cave.
Yeah, I'm doing a couple of titles for them right now. One is a Flash Gordon title, and I'm not 100% sure how much I can say about all of that. And the other is a sequel to one of their titles, I think a year and a half ago or something, called Revolution 9.
Okay.
And I'm doing another mini-series. I think that's a follow-up to that. So, yeah, just trying to stay busy. You know, this ever-changing world. I keep telling myself this will be the year where I'm doing my creator-owned stuff, and then all this stuff just sort of comes at me saying, well, you know, maybe it's better to make some money and have some money in the bank than to assume I will have money doing my own stuff.
So Mad Cave came to you?
Funny enough, I did a cover for them some years ago. Old editor friend of mine, Mike Martz, who actually gave me, well, he was there when I got my first gig at Marvel back in 1999.
Wow.
So many years ago. And we just stayed friends over the years. And now he is, I believe, a senior editor over there at Mad Cave. So we've kept in touch, like I said, over the years. And it's come to a point where I just had some time to do stuff. And he's like, well, hey, how would you like to do some stuff with us? And it turned out that I had the time and they had the time. And we're just doing some stuff together right now. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
That's great. Yeah, my favorite indie book of the last year was from them, The Pedestrian.
Oh, yeah? Okay, I hadn't read that one.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Very different than anything out there. And we've actually... They were the writer and the artist were on our show a while back, and we've become friendly with them.
Very cool.
Yeah, really nice guys and doing some great stuff there. I'm hoping there's a part two because they're nominated for a bunch of awards. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, like Eisner Awards.
Yes, it was. I think it was nice. Mad Cave's best-selling book of the last year or so.
Wow, good for them. Wow.
They're on the uprise, Mad Cave. Got
to get on the ground level. That's it.
And there you go. You're in the right company there.
Now, where are you guys located?
We are on Staten Island. So we're
in Staten Island. Okay, yeah. New York. Yeah, you said New York. I just didn't know where specifically.
So where are you now? You're not in Brooklyn anymore, right?
I was born in Brooklyn. I have been in Brooklyn for, I think we left in 74. Okay. My mother was like, I'm sure almost every other New Yorker that says every year, this place is too damn cold.
Right.
I want the heat, and she moved down to Florida. And of course, us being 4 or 5 years old, we had no say in the matter.
Right.
And moved down there, and so essentially grew up in Florida. I am now settled in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
So it's not too far. I sort of picked the midway between Florida and New York.
It makes it easy to go to the conventions if you do so.
Oh my God, are you kidding? This is a Delta hub here, so I can probably fly nonstop anywhere,
So you have any coming up? You doing any shows coming up?
Yes, actually, there's a show tomorrow I'll be in, which is a local show. It's the Atlanta Comic Con.
Okay.
And it's down here downtown at the Atlanta Convention Center. And they've been having it for the last few years, as I understand it. And yeah, I'll be there for a couple of days there. Nice. And then next week, I will be at the GalaxyCon Raleigh show, which is where they'll have those Godzilla variants that I'll be signing. Nice. So it'll hopefully be the first time it'll make its debut. Yes.
Are you doing any of the big ones? You doing New York this year, or?
I haven't done New York in some years. I did San Diego years and years ago. I find unless I really have something big to promote, the expense on shows like that, it just really is so overwhelming.
Yeah,
so
and it's just gotten up and up.
And it's gone so up and up. And it's funny. I like to say the last time I did San Diego, I went as a guest where they had invited me and they set me up and did the whole thing. And I was like, you know what? If this is the last time I go to this show, I went out on a very high note. So I'm very happy about that. I'm not against doing them. It's just, again, it's such an expense. Yeah. I really would have to have something big.
We go to New York every year, and it's so expensive.
Yeah, and you guys live there, I'm sure, and it's still getting into the city. And, we would have to have a hotel and, parking, transportation, and all that
it's
stuff.
So much. It's so much easier to go somewhere else, to be honest with you.
I hate to say it. It really is. Not that those aren't the places to go. If you can go, I totally recommend it to people to go. But
absolutely. Yeah,
if you can't really, cough up a few $1,000s up front, then that's going to be a hard sell.
And that's not even talking about spending. Like when you go to try to buy stuff, your budget has to be more than any other convention.
Oh my! And all the swag that they have, they essentially force you to buy stuff because you can't get it anywhere else.
The two of them, San Diego and New York, force you to buy stuff there because it's
exclusive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I get it. That's the name of the game. But man, again, that's. When I become independently wealthy, that's when I'll probably start going again.
When you do your creator-owned stuff, you have to promote it. You have to promote it.
Actually, that's probably the case.
That's where everything happens, because that's actually the guys from Mad Cave, the guys who did the pedestrian, were at New York Comic Con for the first time this past year.
Oh, really?
Voting, yeah, and you get a lot of people noticing you for the first time.
Very cool. Yeah. If I can do that, for sure, I will highly consider it. Let's put it that way.
Good. So how did you get into comics? How did you become an artist? And what was as a child, were you a fan? Did you read?
Yeah, of course. Growing up, I seem to be a dying breed. I run into so many people now who don't necessarily collect comics. They collect covers.
Okay.
And I was very much a comic reader. I loved the Fantastic Four growing up. My mother, I don't know how it passed her strict guidelines, but she bought me the Fantastic Four books back in the day. And we're talking, I was a little kid in the 70s, so I was probably 7, 8 or so in the mid 70s. Right. And I was rabid with this whole new world of comic books. I just loved it. And obviously, as a kid, every kid draws. And I think every kid is encouraged to draw, and every kid is doted on their drawing. And I think the talent comes through after a while. When you've been doing that for a while, you sort of realize, hey, I think I got some talent doing this sort of thing. So that was very much the case with me. I was, I loved, obviously, I was more of a Marvel freak or a Marvel zombie, as they used to say back in the day. So I really was very much into like Spider-Man, of course, and The Thing, and because those characters had their exposure all over the place. They had their cartoons, and they had a live action show with the Hulk and Spider-Man and all of those other things in the 70s, and those little crumbs that we were fed, was all we had back then, as I'm sure you know. Yes. That we didn't have any, not like the fancy things today, like today. These kids today have.
Get a new movie every month and a new show every other month. Yeah,
exactly. We had to wait with mediocre television, unfortunately, and really, I hate to say it, the only good thing we had in the 70s, superhero-wise, was Superman coming to us. So it was very much an oasis for many, many years. And then
I make a joke all the time. Superman 4 we waited years for Superman 4.
The Quest for Peace.
There you go. And it wasn't the greatest movie ever made, but we lined up to go see it for sure.
You know, I don't know how much peace there was in that quest, but you're right. And that's always funny. I have a funny story whenever I tell people, because these things just don't happen anymore. When Superman first came out, of course, you know, you're going to the theater. And,
right.
It's one of those. There are only so many movie houses at the time because there weren't all these Googleplexes in the 70s yet. And I vividly remember, excuse me, going to see Superman with my cousin Myra, who was a big disco dancer. Right. So I admired her from the start. There was a little, like it was a 2-theater house, and one of those theaters was showing Superman. And of course, obviously back in the day, it could only support so many people. And if once it was sold out, it was sold out. By the time we got there, it had been sold out, and they were saying, you know, we're having a line now for the next showing. And I think that was maybe the 8:00 showing and the next showing, because it's a long movie. The next showing was going to be at 10:00 at night. And most people nowadays would say, you know, whatever, we're not going to wait. We're going to go have dinner. We're going to go this, whatever. We're just going to leave. Of course, back in the day, if you stood in line and waited, then that's what you did. You didn't go and then come back and hope that you could get back in. And we stood there in line, and it was cold. For Florida, it was cold. I remember that. And it was raining. So we were all just there. And it wasn't just us. There was a line of people to go see that movie for the 10:00 showing, which the 8:00 showing was now sold out. And of course, there were no cell phones. Right. And God help us, somebody had brought a Sears and Roebuck catalog, so it got passed around the line after a while, where you could see what the Sears was selling, because that was sort of our internet or our Amazon back in the day.
Pick your toys for the next year.
Exactly.
Christmas shopping there.
What was coming out, and God help me, I treasure those memories, but I could never see doing that again. No, but
I mean, when you want to go to see a movie, there's like a million movie theaters now.
Oh yeah, well, Superman now, yeah, you could go see Superman and it'd be a half full house because they're showing it in 3, 4, 5 other houses.
We went and saw it, and it was the movie theater was basically empty, and we saw it on opening. We saw it on Friday. We saw it on
around like 10 a.m.
We saw the first showing on Friday, and
right, because every theater is showing it, and every theater is showing 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, did you see the new one?
I did. Yeah, I did finally get out. What was it, last week? Right, or I can't remember when. Yeah, I did go out and see it.
What'd you think?
I liked it. I don't. It was a little. And maybe I have to go see it again because I'm not 100% sure. It felt like I was coming into the middle of a movie once it started.
Okay.
I didn't, obviously, the fight between Superman and the other villain, that all had happened. And I don't know why I'm sitting there going, did I miss something? Right. Because I felt like I missed that particular fight.
Yeah, they definitely were trying, like, because James Gunn said he was trying to not do the background story. But I definitely get that it, like, came in kind of in the middle. After a fight.
He got beat up.
Exactly. And which I totally get. I was hoping that this wasn't going to be another origin story, because just like Batman, we've had that. Every film does not have to start or go back into who this person is. Yes, some sort of a recap is great. And I think a lot of these directors do it very well. And a lot of the Marvel guys did it very well in the opening credits.
Yes.
As the credits are rolling, they're giving you the pertinent information that you need. And then you move on. You don't have to keep going back to that one particular time in their lives.
Well, at this point, do we know Superman's origin in all?
I know.
You don't know Superman's
origin. I don't think you can stay, become an American citizen if you don't know at least
I think you need to know
Superman's origin.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. We hope that it leads to more.
I did. The thing I appreciated the most, which, not to disparage the other Superman movie, but I've always argued, and I'm sure you guys have argued the same thing with your geeky comic friends whenever you all got together. There's Batman, the icons. There's Batman, and then there's Superman. And Batman, of course, is a little darker because his origin was, of course, it was very soulful, and he went through a lot to get there. So you understand where he might be a little darker of a character.
Right.
And I've always contended that Superman, if there is ever in this world a Boy Scout that's who it should be. Superman should be a Boy Scout, because God help us if this guy ever turned mean.
Right.
The world just wouldn't stand a chance, essentially. So I appreciated that this film treated Kal-El or whomever as he was this really nice guy, very much the way Christopher Reeve portrayed him, that he was this nice guy, and he was very approachable, and he cared about people, and you didn't see a whole lot of that in and don't get me wrong with the other one, and Cavell is such a great, I think Cavell was so good looking, he didn't make a good Superman because he's too good looking. So those were my little sticking points.
Yeah, and this one definitely did remind me of the Christopher Reeve Superman, like, the most. I mean, they brought back John Williams music, so it felt so much more like this is Superman.
Yeah. There too, I never understood how those subsequent movies of Superman in particular did not use the John Williams. That's like seeing a James Bond movie and not using the James Bond theme song. How do you do that? You're the only film that can do this, and yet you choose not to do that. So yeah, I've always wondered about that.
So Star Wars, since we're talking about blockbuster movie now.
Sure.
You've done a lot of Star Wars stuff for Marvel.
Over the years, yeah.
Are you a fan?
Again, of course, I think you lose your citizenship if you say you're not a Star Wars fan growing up the way we did. And again, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s and 90s. So all of that was just in part of my history. I can't think of my past without remembering Star Wars being in there in some capacity. And for me, because I was much of a fan, it was even more so. I still remember vividly, getting the first action figures or going to see the film finally. And those were the days where I saw it 10 times, but you had to see it 10 times in the theater. And it was a situation where my mother got so frustrated with taking me to the movies, which parents don't do this to your kids today, but she would just drop me off at the theater and say, I'll pick you up later, but I am not staying to see this movie again. And I was happy to do it, sitting in a darkened theater with strange people.
So when you get that call that you're going to be the artist on a Star Wars comic, how cool is that?
It was very cool. Unfortunately, it wasn't a call. It was more of a, hey, somebody backed out. Would you be interested in doing this? So it was more of a backdoor policy.
And so for which series was that?
I was doing, what the hell was I doing? Oh, I did the U.S. Agent. I had just finished this miniseries called The U.S. Agent. And I think the assistant editor was also one of the editors at the Star Wars camp. And they were asking, hey, we could use a couple of fill-ins for Star Wars The High Republic. Would you be interested? And while I was familiar with Star Wars, I wasn't as familiar with the High Republic because I'm sure, as you all know, this is sort of the newer lore in the Star Wars canonical landscape. But I was more than happy to because, in my head, I thought the closest I was ever going to get to drawing Star Wars maybe 10, 15 years ago was when I did Firefly for Dark Horse. And I was putting all of my Star Wars heart into doing this Firefly book because I thought there's no way I'm ever going to get to do Star Wars. So let me do something that's Star Wars adjacent.
Right.
And so I went from High Republic and it was very much the same. I think somebody had to back out of the Mandalorian and they said, hey, we've got this miniseries, this 8-issue miniseries, if you're interested. It's 30 pages and, all the specifics were such that it was going to be at the very least a year commitment. And I find a lot of artists today don't want that kind of commitment. They want to come in, do a couple covers, maybe do a couple of issues, and then go their own way. And then this too was an untried thing where they were doing adaptations of the actual TV show. So nobody really knew how that was going to sell, if it was going to sell well, or did the audience just feel, hey, you're just trying to gouge us for money we can see already on streaming platforms? So I did that. And then, of course, they said, well, we're doing the season 2 if you want to come back for that. And I said, sure. But they wanted it now. It was successful. So they're like, we're going to have to put it out a little sooner. So we can't have you do every issue, unfortunately. You'll do every other issue.
Okay.
And then that happened. And from there, the opportunity to do Ahsoka came out. In the interim, there was a Life Day single issue where Chewbacca...
We had the issue.
Do you?
Like I
a few
love
pages.
the holiday special. I'm a huge fan of the holiday special. Anything that comes out with that, I pick it up. So I have the holiday special, the Life Day special here.
I'm a fan, but with very much special points, because a lot of that hour special, or was it an hour or 90 minutes? I can't even
I
remember.
believe it's 90 minutes.
90 minutes, man.
I've made my children. I make them watch it every Christmas morning since they were little.
It's obviously it's so bad.
So bad.
Yes.
But
a lot of it is, yeah. Because I would even go so far as a lot of it is so boring.
Yeah.
Because it was for television of a different time, and they included commercials and things like that. So you had these breaks that I think people just accepted back in the day. And it was very cool to see, the original three back together. Well, I guess with Chewbacca as well, and all of them together in something that wasn't a movie. That was very exciting. And the fact that there was an original cartoon involved of this character nobody knew at the time. So it was all very cool. The premise was very cool. I think the execution was very corporate. And therein lies a very, very big difference.
Yeah.
But yes, I hold it as a love because of the time, not because of the content.
Right. So you've worked on a bunch of cool stuff at Star Wars. Do you actually work with the people at Lucasfilms when you do?
Well, Lucasfilms is involved. Yes, the editors at Marvel, the Marvel editors, have to go through Lucasfilm for everything they do. So I will get notes. So I have to turn everything in, and I will get notes back once the Marvel editors, have gotten notes back from Lucasfilm. But it is one of those things. Nothing can go to print until Lucasfilm has signed off on it. So it isn't just, they just have a passing stamp that they say, yes, 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 and then go from there. We were held up a lot in terms of scheduling, because a lot of the Lucasfilm people couldn't look at it right away, or couldn't decide whether this was permissible or if it needed some sort of a revision or something like that. So there were times where the machine grinded to a halt because so many people had to okay it. And it was very much a sacred thing. So anybody who thinks they're just, taking this franchise and doing whatever they want with it, that's not the case at all.
And then, so for the Star Wars comics, does your process kind of differ when you have the High Republic, which is obviously more original stories, you've never seen these characters on screen, versus the Mandalorian and Ahsoka, who it is like a TV adaptation? Like, how does that work with your art style?
Well, not so much my art style in sense, but it is a difference because, and I guess in a good or bad way, you can interpret it how you wish. Like you were saying, with the High Republic, there wasn't a predetermined thing that you went to say, this is what the High Republic is. So you did have a lot of freedom, per se, and a lot of people enjoy that. With the Mandalorian, since there is a series, and a very important series, they didn't want you to become a slave to the reference, but you were very much encouraged to stay within the parameters of what they were doing on the TV show. So I don't know, if there's a big deal, like let's say the Mandalorian meets Boba Fett, and there's a particular scene where they actually do, and there are things in that scene that actually are in the background, or the way it worked out, you have to stay within those boundaries. You can't just say, okay, for this, I'm going to cut to something else. And, I'm going to show you the little sandworms that were kind of walking around at the time when these two were talking. That would have been a note that would have come back to you saying, there were no sandworms in this particular scene, in this juncture. So please eliminate that panel or page or whatever it is. So in that respects, yes, you had to be very stringent with what you were doing. But you could also, given that it is a comic book, you can take those comic book liberties and say, okay, well, this is a static image instead of a moving image. So I'm going to incorporate all I can to tell the story you want me to within those static images. So while everything more or less looks the same, I had the ability to put certain characters and certain artifacts and things like that to line them up so that they worked within the image that maybe weren't necessarily in that particular scene or the way it played out, but you understood it, that was there somewhere, that it had to be seen to a certain degree. And I know that sounds a little confusing, but as you just are doing a series of static images, you have to make sure the audience gets enough information with what they're seeing.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Now, did they send you pictures of some of the characters that you would be?
Oh my God, the best thing, and I recommend this for anybody, if you ever get the chance to work for Star Wars or anything on Star Wars, the best thing is they have a website.
Right.
A website with every photo you could ever want in your life. And the website is very well structured. It is categorized. Since it's Lucasfilm, the website has Indiana Jones. The website has every property that they own. And in reference to the Mandalorian, they had a whole Mandalorian section per episode, and literally thousands of pictures per episode. Wow. So that I could use as reference. Now, that having been said, as an artist, I am gleed. I love having more. I usually tell people the more reference you give me, the better your thing is going to look. Sometimes that can backfire, because having that much reference, Marvel was really, or Lucasfilm was very much nitpicking little things. The only one thing that comes to mind quickly was the episode where he almost takes off his helmet in the first season. Right. And he's going, the woman is saying, stay with us and raise your kid here and we can have a family. Well, in the beginning of that, she's mining with her daughter for shrimp or kelp or whatever it is. And I guess it's the food that they produce so that they can then sell at market or whatever. So if you watch the episode, there was maybe a fleeting image of what those things actually look like. And I did take the reference, but apparently I wasn't too specific on what those things look like. And that was a particular note that I got back from Marvel, because there is one panel, mind you, in the comic that I drew where it did have a semi-close-up of those shrimp. And they were saying, the antennae they should be a little bit longer. So could you please draw the antennae a little longer?
Pretty funny.
And it's those little nitpicky things. You could either go, oh my God, am I in for a whirlwind? Or you're going, thank you. This is how much I want to stay within the parameters.
Got to stick with the canon.
So is that something that you like to do? Because you've worked on Serenity, you worked on Buffy. So do you like working on properties where you actually are getting information from them? And did you worked closely with Josh Whedon when you did the Buffy series, right?
Yeah, no, I do. I love and again, every artist is different. So whenever you talk to somebody else, that's always a good question to ask. Al Williamson, who did those original Star Wars adaptations, he loved reference. And unfortunately for those guys, they didn't have nearly enough reference as they might have liked. And that's why The Empire Strikes Back, when you read the comic, looks a little different than when you see the movie. So I am very much a huge fan. I didn't have as much reference when I was doing Buffy or Firefly. Buffy was a special case because in this case, we were doing something after the TV show. So none of what appeared on the show, aside from the characters and maybe an odd flashback, was germane to the canon moving forward. So what we were doing, Buffy was already in Europe, let's say, or just moving around. So there would not have been reference in terms of her TV show for me to go to. The most reference thing I had was for Firefly, and that was the ship. Right. Because if you're a fan of Firefly, and anybody will tell you that the ship is a character unto itself. You may not know exactly where things are on that ship, and I had to learn exactly where things are on that ship. But you know it when you see it. It's one of those things where if it looks wrong, the fans are going to pick it up, or the reader is really going to notice. They may not be able to tell you how to correct it, but they'll know when it's wrong. And in my case, I don't know how much of a fan you guys are of the Firefly series. I had the opportunity and the disadvantage. The ship in the TV show is a little different from the ship in the movie.
Okay.
And the canon that we were doing was taking place, of course, because the movie takes place after the TV show. The comic book that I was doing, the 2 series, I should say, that I was doing, took place after the movie. So there were legitimate differences in terms of dress and location on the ship itself. So I personally took liberties with how to illustrate where they were at any given time, or whose room we were in and what was in that particular room, which was great for me. I loved the opportunity to do that. But I was very much keeping in mind, there are going to be some very hardcore fans who are like, that's not Mal. Because at this point, Mal and Nara were now dating. So you assume they were living in the same room. So it wouldn't look just like Mal's room or something like that. Little inconsistencies like that. So I was very happy to do it. But yes, there was a thought process, to say the least, on that.
And listen, and let's be honest, you don't want to upset fans like that. Like, Star Wars fans are a little bit crazy, and I know Firefly fans and Buffy fans really hold it to their heart, so they don't.
Oh yeah, they are forever.
For everything, you make a mistake.
They're like this, they're like when they see you at a con.
It sounds like you really like to torture yourself. You do things where people are really going to criticize if you make a mistake.
Well, I love it. Growing up, I was just wishing, growing up, and I mean like in high school, before I ever touched professional comics, I wished I could do some sort of a Star Wars thing, or a Blade Runner thing, or a Logan's Run thing, or anything science fiction at the time. I was like, oh my God, if I ever get the chance, I coveted Al Williamson's Star Wars stuff and his Flash Gordon adaptation, all of those Marvel comic movie adaptations. To varying degrees, I like and dislike a lot of them, but I coveted the fact that they got the opportunity. John Buscema had the great honor of doing Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that's probably the one I like the least, because it just felt like, hey, this is another gig. I'll just draw it and keep going.
I recently picked up The Deep, which was,
The Deep, the movie The Deep?
Yeah, they have the Marvel.
The Peter Benchley, the guy who wrote Jaws.
They did a comic adaptation.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I picked it up recently at a convention. I was like, wow, I had no idea it existed. And it's not their best adaptation, but it's
interesting.
They were picking up a lot then.
I do. I still, every now and again, I'll pick up, if I see an adaptation I don't have, I'll pick it up. I think For Your Eyes Only was the last one I picked up recently.
I've seen that one recently too. Yeah, they had so many. You don't realize that how many of those licenses they picked up at that time and did the.
Yeah. They were just. Marvel was training it out. They were just going for it, and they were the only gig in town too. I think people understood. Well, okay, let's have a comic book adaptation. Who do we go to? Well, we go to Marvel, obviously, because they're doing the most and the best.
Isn't it? If you really think about it, it's the first time Disney and Marvel worked together. The Black Hole.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I was a huge fan. That's a big movie for me. That comes off the heels of Star Wars.
Is it?
I mean, it wasn't great at the time as a kid. Oh, it's not good.
It's unfortunate.
It was wonderful at the time, and like you said, I saw it in a 2-theater movie theater with my dad. And I remember it vividly as a kid going to see that movie.
Oh, no. I'm like you. While I didn't like the movie as much, I've got my, neck action figure of Vincent sitting on my wall. Yeah.
Just to this day, it still stands out for me for some reason. I don't know why. But what character that you've never worked on would you like to work on? So you worked on X-Men, right? You worked on X-Men.
I was X-Men adjacent. I never actually touched an X-Men book, but I've done Gambit, I've done Bishop, I've done a bunch of the secondary characters, and that's why I like to say I was X-Men adjacent, because I'm always on the peripheral. But yeah, I totally loved it, because growing up again, I was in that time where John Byrne and Chris Claremont and Paul Smith and all of those guys were doing such incredible work in the medium. So I would love to, personally, somebody I've never done. I've always liked Spider-Man, and I appreciate, but I was never necessarily a collector. But since Spider-Man was probably the most popular Marvel character of that time, he was just everywhere. So I did enjoy him. The thing that converted me into, and more so the thing that converted me into wanting to draw comics for real, was picking up, because I was never a Daredevil fan, and picking up Frank Miller's Daredevil just I swear to you, it was like Monty Python's Holy Grail, where God just came from the clouds that parted and spoke to me and said, this is what comics are supposed to be like. And I was converted from then on, and I thought, man, if I draw comics, this is the kind of comics I want to draw.
So he's one of the inspirations then, Miller?
Heavy. And it's funny because and you can argue this, sure, a lot of people are saying, well, he was never a great artist. And I'm always like, you don't have to like somebody because they're great. You just have to like them because they mean something to you. They touched you in some way.
Storyteller. He's
a phenomenal storyteller. And, much on that same level, you would read the Will Eisner books. Once you become educated, you sort of backtrack and see that. And obviously it was never that Frank invented this. He was utilizing this medium and this style of storytelling, and that's what got me, because nobody else was doing that at the time. And I was collecting all of the greats. At that time, Walt Simonson was doing Thor, and George Perez was doing the Teen Titans, and obviously John Byrne was doing Fantastic Four at that time. All of that great stuff was coming out, but storytelling wise, oh my God, nobody was touching what Frank Miller was doing.
It changed the way we looked at it.
Subsequently, at that time, too, Daredevil was always sort of a lagging title until he got onto it, and eventually surpassed selling X-Men, which was their biggest selling title at that time.
For a long time.
It had to touch somebody, is what I say.
Yeah, it changed the way we looked at comic books. It really made
very much so, and for the better too. Again,
absolutely.
I know towards the end, Frank was kind of, I like to say he was an artist, and then he was an artist who was a writer, and then he was a writer who was drawing, and then he was more of an artist or a writer who was kind of doing layouts. So we progressively got a lot of less of Frank, but the stuff we got, that Elektra graphic novel is phenomenal. And you'll see Steve McNiven's Daredevil book coming out now is an ode very much to that style that you're seeing nowadays.
So you bring up another one of my questions. You talk about Frank Miller. What creator would you like to work with that you've never worked with before? If you could pick anyone, living or gone.
Oh, that's even harder. That's like
I try to make that question hard because it's you have.
I always look at that. Yeah, I always look at that when somebody says, "Oh, if there was anybody you could ever have dinner with, living or dead, who would it be?" And I'm always thinking, wouldn't you just say Jesus Christ? I mean, who would you want to go to the Elvis of a thing? The ultimate, exactly. So I never try to answer that question in ultimate terms. Obviously, growing up in the time that I did, once I did start reading DC, Alan Moore just blew me away, as he did everybody else. And I would have probably lost all of my fluids if I could have worked with Alan Moore on some sort of a project. Just like even to this day, I'm friendly with Chris Sprouse, who did the Tom Strong series with him. And I'm so jealous to this day, thinking, God, you guys did this very cool, independent, creator-owned thing that only you two, this is just you two. It's not associated with anybody else but the two of you, as are some of those America's Best comics are. But I always thought, God, that would have been the ultimate right there. And mind you, I have worked with tons of people. Yes, to answer your question earlier, I worked very closely with Joss Whedon when we were doing Buffy, and that's probably the closest. You could argue that's probably the closest I ever got to my Alan Moore, is working with Joss, because he was very into it at the beginning. And he wrote those scripts like he was writing a TV show and a novella or a teleplay, or however you want to look at it. And it was glorious. And the beauty of that was Joss reached out to all of the writers who were writing Buffy, who had gone on to much bigger fame, and asked them if they had come back and write some Buffy stories as well. And most of them had the time to come back and do it. So it was a glorious time to be doing all of that stuff.
And he wanted you, like he sought you out, right? He wanted you to be.
I'm glad you said it, because I don't have the hubris to actually say it. Joss Whedon wanted me. I had to tell him no a couple of times. It is. I mean, I had to tell him no a couple of times because I didn't believe it was actually him who was asking. Could you come work with us? So I always say that story makes me look better than it should. But Joss, of course, is a big fan of comic books, and he was reading. He was reading a book I was doing at the time. Funny enough, written by another writer, director, much like Joss, a gentleman called John Ridley. And we were doing something called The American Way, which was a fictional account of superheroes in the 60s.
Okay.
Very much like Watchmen, but set in the 60s with John F. Kennedy as president, and introducing a black character or a black superhero at that time, and with the civil rights being what it was the crux of what the story was. So it was a really good story. I got the script and thought, even if I don't draw this book, because there were no discernible characters that you could tell because it was an original story. Right. I thought to myself, this is something I'm going to pick up at the store whenever it comes out, even if I don't draw it, because this is such a good story. I'm assuming Joss said the same thing because he was reading that book. And when it came time to say, okay, Joss, now that you've written this season 8, who do we get to draw it? And he was like, I don't know who this guy is holding up the book, but this is the guy I would really like to have, or let's put him in the pot of people that we really want to approach.
That's a really
no, it's great. It's
you should be telling that story. I don't know why you don't tell that story. That's a great story.
Again, I don't have the hubris for that sort of clout.
Yeah, but that says a lot about
it. Does I agree.
What you're doing. You've been doing this for a very long time. You have to be doing something right.
Yeah, I'm very humbled, and you're very right. I mean, a lot of it is talent. Yes, agreed. But I think a lot of it is also just sticking to it. A lot of people sort of, and I'm sure you can name names that once another opportunity came out, like a video game or movie or something else, they, not necessarily jumped ship and ran, but they figured, okay, comics were essentially a stepping stone for me to go someplace else. I never thought in those terms. I always thought, this is what I want to do. And there were a few times where I thought, am I limiting myself because of this is what I want to do? And God thank George Perez. George and I were friendly when he was still with us. And he was one of those guys, if you'll notice, George Perez he did a bunch of stuff, but he never strayed too far from comic books. And he had a clout like no other artist could have had. He could have done, I don't know, a movie, things here and there, but he loved the comic medium, and it really gratified me talking to him. We had dinner one night years and years ago, and he's just, I just love this. I love the medium. This sort of thing cannot be done any other way. A novel is a novel, music is music, movie is a movie. Comics, this is serialized, which is funny because I don't think a lot of comics today are serialized, but this is something that goes on. It's like a soap opera. And if you enjoy your storytelling and what you're doing and these characters, there's no better high. And I agree. I'm like, wow, this is great. I wish I could. That would be a great get, and maybe that's where it comes into the creator-owned stuff. But I wish I could be on an ongoing series, not for the security of work, but for the sense of storytelling. Again, you look at those Teen Titan issues or those Thor issues, and those respective creators took those characters and places into highs and lows and areas where you're like, wow, this is great. This is why I come back to this book every month.
That's because I am fans. You're right.
I'm invested. Exactly. I am invested in what these characters are doing. Not here. This is an 8-issue miniseries, and in this one, Thanos dies. So be sure to pick it up because it's going to be a big deal. You're like, well, if that was an ongoing series, much like Batman Year One was, you didn't know what was happening towards the end. If you're telling me Thanos dies in this 8-issue miniseries, then why are you giving away the ending to something I could have been, bowled over reading it as we got to that point? And that's the only gripe I really have about comics these days. You don't have that anymore.
You're right.
You don't have that sense of, I don't know what's going to happen. Everything is now being marketed as to here. This is what's going to happen, and this is why you have to read it.
Right.
Well, why not just let us read it, and then we'll figure out what happens.
Yeah, it's all pre-sale. It's all marketing at the front end now. You're
very much predetermined.
It like that because I've grown up in a world where it's I didn't grow up with reading comics like that.
Yeah.
I already know most of the things that happens in these big titles, so
I
never really thought about it.
Yeah, it's sad to say you'll probably never get the opportunity to say, "Oh yeah, that happened in issue 20." or that happened in issue 50,
Yeah.
or the fantastic 50th issue was so great because, Supergirl got married to her husband finally, or, things like that, where you're going, it doesn't have to change the world, but in the context of continuity, it's special. Just like everything in our everyday lives. If we go to the movies, if we have a birthday, or if somebody comes from out of the blue and visits you for a while, these things are valid and they're special for what they are. They're not earth-shattering. Yeah, we don't have this glove with all the rings and pearls on them, but it is special within the context of a serialized depiction, and I find we don't have that anymore.
I would agree. That's actually a really good way to look at it. So you have any creator-owned stuff in the works yet, or no?
I do, yeah. I've had, you ask any artist, and they've got some. Anybody who says, "Nah, I haven't really thought about it," no, they've got something in there. You're not going to kid me otherwise. And I do. I loved Blade Runner growing up, and I think because of the detective genre.
My favorite movie of all time. It's my number one favorite movie.
There you go. And with that, I thought, well, I would love to do a detective book. Right. So I've it's not in the future, but I would. Well, now even Blade Runner is not in the future. Really, the first one anyway. So something like that I've got, and I like to do things that I like to draw, and there is a series of basically it's couriers, people who deliver like FedEx,
right.
And I have a story in mind for that. More so because of the I'm a fan of a certain clothing style, and I've always wanted to just have an excuse to draw certain clothing on certain people. And I don't know how those two ideas, a courier like a FedEx and a clothing style coming together, telling some story, but worst thing or stranger things have happened. Stephen King said, I had this girl about her menstruation and the idea of telekinesis, and those two ideas came together, and then we got Carrie.
And we got a hit movie.
Exactly. So little things like that will hit me, and I do. It's just, if you want it done right, it is labor intensive, and I just haven't had all that much time to devote to it.
So it's nothing in production or anything yet. You just have ideas that you want to get going.
Their ideas, the detective one, I've written it out. It's a 5-issue limited series because, unfortunately, that's just how things are. Nothing is ongoing anymore, especially when it's not tried and true. So that's actually ready to go. I would just have to draw it. But, of course, that's the most labor-intensive point. And, it's one of those, I've got to make sure I've got money or I can afford to sit for the next couple of months and just actually do this particular book. So thankfully, I've had other projects come in that actually pay me. That's a project I'm going to have to say, well, I need to have a little buffer. Yeah.
Well, listen, we look forward to it if it actually gets out there.
Blade Runner inspired.
Yeah, you said Blade Runner inspired. That's all I need to hear. I watch it like once a year. I try to rewatch it.
Wait, which one? The first or the second one?
First one. Oh,
yeah. How do you feel about the TV show coming up?
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of I'm of the mindset that if I get something like Star Wars is a good example of it. If I know a lot of people complain, oh, this is crap, this is garbage. If I get something that's Star Wars, I'm happy because I never growing up, like you said it, we didn't have that. You didn't have this wealth of material coming to you. We had that Superman movie, and then we waited a couple of years and we got another one. Did we get 2 crappy ones? Yeah, but it was still Superman. I was still happy to be sitting in movie theater watching Superman.
Just happy that a man could fly. Exactly.
And I Blade Runner the same way. Did I love the movie? No. Did I look forward to watching it? Yes. Have I watched it more than once? Of course I have. And the show, I will watch it as soon as comic books come out. I buy the comic books. It's the same.
Yeah, that's an interesting. How do you like the comic? Because yes, I know that's Titan who publishes it, and I would. I like Titan. My God, I would love to, but I haven't been too sold on the story that they're telling.
Same here. It's.
Yeah. What about the cartoon, the animation? They did a little animation series.
I saw parts of it. I never saw.
Yeah, it was called Black Lotus.
Yes. I saw parts of it. And it didn't catch me.
No, you're right. More of that. Yeah. Unfortunately.
And I hold the original one so close. I'd love
very much so. Which I will agree, because like you, I'm sure you're such a rabid fan of this thing. You want everybody to be a fan, and I'm sure you show your kids, and they're sitting there going, I don't know, Dad. This is kind of boring.
Well, my wife says it every time I have my wife says it. This is so boring. This is my favorite movie.
And that is
the only things that I
love the intricate. I love the
you showed me
intricacy of it.
And that's fair. That's a fair assessment. I totally agree with you because certainly with our mindset as it is today, we needed to. Hey, come on, we need to keep going here. And it is very, very slow, but it's a pace. It's not. It's a marathon, not a race, essentially. I totally agree when people say, "Yeah, it's boring," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's totally fair." And this movie probably will never touch you the way it touched us. So
it got us at a right time. It really
yes, sir.
Exactly.
But funny enough, I felt the second film fell into the same category because it was so slow in a time where now we know better. This movie should have been a lot more there should have been a lot more fluid with what they were doing, and it felt to me like it suffered the same fate, which I don't know if you consider it a success or not, but I enjoyed it very much. I haven't been giddy in a film probably since Avengers Endgame, just to go sit in a movie theater. And when Blade Runner 2049 came out, I was giddy just sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm getting another Blade Runner movie.
I waited
since 1982, exactly.
Oh, that's way too long to wait for. But that if you produce something like that,
hey, if you got any, I keep telling people, you got any connection to Titans? Tell them, please. I would love to do one of those comic books.
I will. I think we interviewed a couple people that.
Well, and that's probably a whole nother podcast because I read a lot of those books, and I think they are going in the wrong direction. So I'll probably never get a chance to do those books. He's too damn opinionated. We don't want him.
We don't want him changing what we're doing, but that's fair. Again, it's not everything's going to be great. But it's still there. That's how I feel.
I do, and the sad thing is, and you hit on a very interesting point. We now settle for mediocrity. We don't hold out for great anymore. We just hold out for okay. And I don't aspire to that. I know there's a lot of stuff coming out, but to be good takes work.
Yeah.
If you want to make it to the Olympics, and I parallel the Olympics to like The Watchmen.
Right.
The Watchmen to me is the Olympics of entertainment. And if you want to be that great, you have to put in the time. If you sat and read The Watchmen, you realize I'm not just reading a comic book that's 12 issues long. I'm reading a whole world that this person has created. And you just don't see that in comics anymore. Comic books, and usually that has always been the case. They've been very disposable, and you just read it and put it away and you go on about your business. But I've always felt that's not all they have to be. And again, point in case with Alan Moore with The Watchmen. And if you want to go further than that, when he was on Swamp Thing, I coveted that book every month that it came out because I knew I was getting something that was up here rather than settling for the things I was getting down here. And I don't know why that standard is no longer adhered to anymore. And I know it's controversial to say, and people might not like me saying it, but I do feel so much of the comics that are put out today are just substandard in that sense.
Do you feel that one of the reasons that is maybe what you said earlier, that you really just have to keep churning stuff out? Like you can't spend the time to work on your own project because you have all this other work going on, and it's moving very fast. Like you can't take the time to build another world right now because you're
exactly. Well, that, and I'm not independently wealthy.
Right.
So if I were independently wealthy, I could take all the time I want.
Well, is anyone in comic books independly wealthy at this point?
I'm sure Jim Lee could do whatever he wanted to do.
Todd McFarlane maybe could
Todd McFarlane could. Yeah.
Right.
If they really wanted to, I'm sure. Mark Millar could do whatever he wants, and that's exactly what he's doing.
And there you go. He's a good example. But back to Star Wars. Who's your favorite character in Star Wars?
Oh, you're going to laugh. But growing up again with the episode 4 being the only thing that we had, I don't know why. You know how you come out of the theater after you've seen it for the first time and go, I'm going to be Han Solo. Yeah. I'm going to be Luke Skywalker. And for the ladies, I'm going to be Princess Leia, or I'm going to be whatever. I came out of that thing, and maybe this is some therapy I need to have, but I came out of that thing wanting to be C-3PO.
Okay.
No clue why.
I was just waiting. I'm like, who is going to laugh at?
Greedo. I wanted to be Greedo.
There's a psychology there that I'm sure I need to unpack at some point, but I thought he was so cool. And he was the linchpin to the whole film.
Right.
I just thought, C-3PO, this is it. And I think maybe looking back, it was because there was and I think this was Lucas's fame, or what he did right, was there was such an attempt for realism. And in that reality of Star Wars, it's a very messy universe. It's not clean. It's very dirty. And you looked at C-3PO, and he was, he had oil leaking from him, or he had dust on him, or whatever. I believe this was a walking, talking robot. At whatever, 7 years old, I believe that this guy was what he was saying, what he was purported to be. And R2-D2 was exactly what we saw in him. I can look at it now and understand my misconception, but back then, man, they had me hook, line, and sinker.
That's an interesting one. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say
you never will.
It's C-3PO.
And I've said that to some people, and they were asking, well, you obviously didn't identify with your sexual identification at that time. So
I thought you were going to say Chewbacca. I thought you were going to say Chewbacca, because that's one that you get sometimes, that people identify Chewbacca. Just how
all valid choices. And even Darth Vader, even if you told me Darth Vader, valid choice. Nobody will ever tell you, I wanted to be C-3PO coming out of that.
Did you get the costume afterwards? You dressed up as C-3PO?
I didn't. The only thing I ever dressed up as, funny enough, back in those days, my mother was willing for one of my birthdays to paint me and all of my friends, who I didn't have a whole lot of, but at least I had more than 4.
Right.
And she dressed up us as Kiss.
Okay.
And that was the only cosplay I ever did in the 70s, I have to say. We did get the Halloween costumes, but I always hated that they put the name of the character on the chest of the costume. Here. Oh, it just bugged the hell out of me, because I was going for a complete osmosis.
You wanted to be a droid.
Batman doesn't say Batman on his chest. Why does it say Batman on his chest?
Exactly.
That's a good one. Ben Cooper, some great costumes.
Yes.
Then that's it. The Star Wars ones too. They all had their name on the chest.
It bothered. And then it was only in the front. There was nothing in the back.
No, black was
they couldn't continue the idea from the back as well.
That's why Superman was always good at Batman, because they had capes, so it wasn't
Well, and then it was just a solid color too, so you can do that. But all the intricacies of Star Wars, they were not prepared.
No.
And those flaccid lightsabers we had, where you had to blow them up and put them on. Oh, it was awful, because it was essentially a flashlight, but then you would put this little foam thing to make it look like a saber, and I was like, no. I'm living in the wrong time, I kept telling myself.
now it's crazy amount.
I have a lightsaber.
Yeah, lightsabers that look real.
Of course you do. And you have a particular lightsaber, I'm sure, to a particular character. There, we just had to settle for whatever lightsaber they were willing to give us.
But now they have...
they have
every single...
In Disney, they have every...
You could think of.
Well, you can make your own lightsabers.
Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I made my own droid.
Did you? I wanted to do that. I was there not too long ago, and what is it, like $300 or something? It was just the cost.
I think the lightsaber one. I didn't want to do the lightsaber one, because I was like, that one's like really expensive. Mm-hmm. So I settled for the droid one.
Cassidy, she's going to work down there in less than a month.
Oh, get out of here! Do you know where?
What?
Do you know where?
Not yet. I got told that I'll be working attractions, which is definitely what I wanted.
That's prime time. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of face time there. That's good. Yeah. So that has always been, growing up in Florida, that has always been, and funny, now that I'm reaching the autumn of my years, I thought, man, wouldn't it be a great idea just to retire and work at Disney part-time?
I said the same thing, because she's doing a college program, and it's funny because in her college program, there's a couple who's doing it, and they're in their late 50s. Mm-hmm. And they're doing the college program. I was like, that is a great idea. If you're a Disney fan, obviously. If you're not, then I'm sure it's living hell. But I thought, man, that would be a great way to retire. Yeah. Just, relax and actually go to Disney whenever you want. It's everything.
Go whenever you want.
And that would be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Disney fan, obviously, way back, because we would go every year. Or maybe 3 or 4 times a year, because we lived in Miami, and that's about a 2.5-hour drive to Orlando. So we'd go all the time. Yeah, we've gone in the last 2 years. I think we've
gone like 4 or 5 times in the last 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
we love
If
it.
we were a 2-hour drive.
If we were talking online, I don't know how we wouldn't.
You say you drive down there?
No.
No.
I was saying, like, if we were that close to Disney World,
Oh, gotcha.
forget about it.
My oldest daughter got engaged there, so we were there.
Oh, nice.
So,
You know, when Celebration first came out, I seriously considered moving over to that area that you know was Disney adjacent, and they had all that. I did know somebody who did move there, and you know, obviously the idea of something is usually different than the reality of something. And while it was still very cool, they really got me with the, well, if you did move here, this is what the reality would be. So, you know, as much as it's a fantasy, it obviously everything has its own pluses and minuses.
Definitely. So, is there anything that before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to promote? Any appearances or?
Yeah, no. Like I said, I'll be at the Raleigh GalaxyCon. I'm doing a bunch of conventions this year. So I have a website. It's called kabalounge.com. KABALOUNGE.com. With all of my merchandise and all of my appearances, anybody who wants to get a hold of me can reach out. Of course, once you go there, you can go to all of my socials. Everybody, we've got Instagram, X, and Facebook, and all of that stuff that we're supposed to have. So, yeah, I'm very accessible, is what I like to say.
Do you do commissions at this point, or no?
I do. I do commissions at shows, and then if you go to my website, you can commission a commission if that's your ilk. So, yeah.
That's
funny enough. I am just now finishing up a commission of a Usagi Yojimbo.
Wow,
I don't know if you can see that.
Is that for my next door neighbor? Because my next door neighbor gets that character done by almost everyone every artist he can.
I have no idea. What is this?
Going to Staten Island, you might be doing it for my next door neighbor.
You know what? I have the info here somewhere, but no.
Yeah,
I get that every now and then I've got a guy who loves cards. He loves sketch cards.
That's becoming a big thing now.
So I've done a bunch of sketch cards just recently as well.
Seeing some Disney characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He comes with an assortment of things whenever he asks for sketch cards.
That's becoming more and more popular now, those trades.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty too, and it's so easy to do. I make my own sketch cards now, awesome. So they've got my logo in the back, and anybody who wants gets a very limited edition because nobody else has those logos. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing those a lot more at the conventions that artists have those.
Yeah, I think because they're easy to do, and you can get them done fairly quickly.
And they're easy to display on the other side, so they're easy
and to display. Yeah,
a lot of them at the same time. But
for sure.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Anytime you want to come on, when the detective comic comes out, we'd love to have you back on again.
I will definitely let you know. Thank you so much.
Anytime you want to promote anything. Hopefully, we see you. Really good talking to you. Take care.
You too, guys, for sure. Good luck to you at Disney.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Take care.